Welcome to the COMEX and MyCISO webinar around demystifying cybersecurity management and supplier risk for financial services and legal organizations. I hope you can all hear me. My name is Nick Cross and I am the GM of Sales and Marketing at COMEX. And my co-host today is Daniel Johns, who's a security principal at MyCISO. Thank you all for registering and attending the webinar today. And we're joined by both existing COMEX customers and attendees who are new to COMEX. So who is COMEX and why are we hosting this webinar with our partner MyCISO? COMEX are a digital workspaces and security managed service provider based here in Sydney. We currently support customers up to 4,000 employees across a range of industries, including financial services and legal organisations. Now, cybersecurity. There's no doubt we all know that cybersecurity attacks pose a significant threat to small and medium businesses here in Australia, with 1 in 10 being victimised. The average loss for those small businesses from a cyber attack far exceeds $20,000. And however, the impact goes beyond finances, where it's affecting staff emotionally and damaging business reputation. About 60% of those SMBs who are attacked actually close down within 6 months. However, businesses that invest time and money in cybersecurity preparation can actually minimize the impact and improve their chances of recovery. But preparedness is crucial as no business is immune to cyber threats. So today, this webinar, we're looking to demonstrate how you can be prepared. So despite the increasing exposure for all businesses to becoming a victim of cyber attacks, too many businesses are not spending time or money preparing themselves for a potential attack. Preparedness typically takes the form of 4 key activities: cyber attack prevention, cyber awareness training for your people, data protection procedures, and response plan in case of an attack, and cyber insurance solutions. Now, your businesses are not expected to understand all these activities yourselves. Instead, you'll find value from engaging with a managed IT security services expert such as COMEX. And where we tailor our IT security solutions to suit a client's individual needs, we allow them to protect and empower their company and team and create strategic value through to their clients securely. Today, Daniel will be providing an overview of the MyCISO platform to introduce how, together with COMEX, we can help you learn how to demystify your cybersecurity management and supplier risk using their platform to assess, improve and manage an effective strategic security uplift program across your organization, wherever you are in your journey. We'll just share a few housekeeping requests before we start the webinar. So as you've seen, the webinar is being recorded and we will share this with you after your event. We appreciate there's probably people in your organization you want to show some details to. If you do have questions throughout the webinar, we do encourage you to use the raise your hand button at the top of the Teams page, so we can just pause the presentation, allow you to ask the question, and then have them answered. If you prefer to wait until the end of the presentation, we do have a Q&A section as part of the agenda, but we're happy to make this a very informative and ideally a collaborative discussion as part of your learning. If you're not going to be asking a question, please do look to stay on mute to minimize background noises. And if you don't want to show your webcam, that's okay. We obviously know it's lunchtime and no one needs to see someone else devouring a big lunch. A call to action after this, we will of course look to engage with you after this event, whether it's this week or beginning of next week, really to understand your feedback, what areas of interest you'd like to explore. COMEX have our own information governance and security expert who'll be happy to engage in a 30-minute exploratory discussion on what parts you'd like to explore further around suggested next steps and how we, alongside the MyCISO platform, may be able to help you. Before I pass you to Daniel, we'd like to just start the webinar by really asking you, the audience, to assist us in answering some short poll questions. This will help us really tailor our presentation to your interests as we look to address each MyCISO module. So I'll just look at sharing that now and putting it on the screen. Wait for Teams to catch up. Okay, launching the first one now. There are only 2 or 3 questions for each poll that we're looking to show, and I'll read these out. Daniel, can I just get a nod that you can see the poll? Lovely, thank you. So The first question is, if you can please answer them as we go through. Do you currently measure your cyber maturity? So yes with the tool set against a framework, whether it be NIST, ISO, Essential 8, etc. Yes, you do it on a spreadsheet against the framework. Loosely measure your cyber maturity, or not at all?
You can also click the polls button at the top of your screen, so it will display it on your right-hand side if you want to sort of see how things are going along. Nick, you didn't mention keep phones on mute, and the bathrooms are down the hall past the bar on your left-hand side.
And the exits are here, here, and here. Yeah.
That's it.
Okay, so I'll just progress through to the next one if it's easier to do it on the screen for you. Do you assess your cyber risk posture? Again, yes with the tool set. You do this manually, loosely, or not at all. And the next question regarding the assessment, do you have a need to report your cyber maturity either upward or to external parties? So do you have a simple process that works quite well for you? Yes, you do, but it takes you a long time to get these reports that you'd rather have a simpler way of doing it. Yes, you do, but you're unable to do so. Or nope, no one cares in our organization about our cyber posture.
Good on. Listen, I think everybody can just take those at the time. There's 9 questions in all throughout this poll. As you're going through, we'll present, or Nick will throw the polls up on the screen, and take your time to respond to them. But it'd be really great. It's an anonymous poll, so we'd be pretty keen to see how everybody manages those situations.
Okay. So if everyone's okay, either you can do it in the polls as we progress, or I'll quickly show them up and then we'll pass to Daniel if you're okay.
I think in the interest of time, we'll get cracking into it, Nick.
Okay. Thank you, Daniel. So for our attendees, introducing Daniel Johns, the security principal for MyCISO.
Thanks very much, Nick. I'm also I'm almost not used to people calling me Daniel Johns anymore. Almost everybody calls me DJ these days because it's just it's so common. The name's so common. But it's great to be here as part of the COMEX webinar. I joined MyCISO from CyberCX last year, and the reason I came from such a large organization, cyber organization, to the startup is the huge potential. This is a platform through which almost everybody can gain cyber hygiene. It shouldn't be the way that cyber hygiene is provided through extraordinary expensive consulting gigs. We should be able to measure and manage our own cyber journey on our own. And Nick, I'm going to get you to drive the deck because I'm unable to share. So let's get to the first one. So today we're going to talk about 3 things: demystifying cybersecurity in terms of assessing your own maturity, supplier risk assessments, and cyber culture. Next slide, please, Nick. All right. To that end, we point out there's 3 major pain points here. And the first we'll go into in a second, cyber maturity. It lends itself to the poll questions. How do you currently assess your cyber maturity? Do you do it against a cyber framework? Do you do it by fires burning? How do you assign budgets? So on and so forth. Supply chain risk assessment is becoming more of a talking point these days. It's like zero trust was a couple of years ago. Cyber risk assessment is the #1 talking point amongst CISOs. And because most of these breaches are occurring through human error, either through lack of resilience or lack of process, cybersecurity culture is very, very important. We're going to give you a demo of the platform. I should have changed those points around. We'll go into the demo next so that we get straight into that platform. And then just to wrap it up, we'll talk about some of our success stories that we've had so far in our first 12 months in production. Got a bit of Q&A. Hopefully you've got lots of tough questions for me, and wrap up next steps. All right, Mr. Cross, next step, please. The start of MyCISO as a platform was a number of years ago. A guy called Dane Meir, my boss, was running a company called InfoTrust, and he identified a real problem. And the problem was that GRC consultants are expensive, they're a finite resource, and often they don't agree with each other. So we have a whole lot of very highly paid subject matter experts who are doing assessments on organizations at really high rates and coming up with potentially different results. And he's like, there's got to be a better way to do this. The tools that are in the market are cumbersome, are really expensive, and often the output from them is very clunky or really verbose. And so he came up with this concept of MyCISO. The flagship product, Assess, allows you to choose. Was that a? It was a. It was a spacecraft there.
That was a glitch.
There was a glitch. The demo gods. So the Assess platform allows you to choose a cybersecurity framework. Allows you to measure the maturity of your controls within that framework, and then produce a gap assessment. Also has a risk assessment module. It has that will produce a cyber strategy report and an executive summary, so that you can report to the people above you, to your C-suite, to your board, as to exactly where you are and what your cyber posture is and your journey. Coming out of that is our suppliers module, and the supplier module was only released a couple of months ago, but allowed you to put that focus onto your supply chain. So break your supply chain up into low, medium, and high criticality, assign them with a set of questions or frameworks that you want to assess them against, and let it go. Also then pieces all together that process. So it takes it out of spreadsheets, takes it out of email correspondence, and puts it all into one clear platform. And then lastly, we have the culture, the cyber culture platform. It's produced by us. The content is all created by ourselves within Australia. It's Australian centric, not US centric. And we have a really great strategy builder. So within a couple of minutes, you can build a 12, 24-month cyber strategy that's automated. It goes off, delivers all of that content, does training, tests for resilience, does phishing simulation, etc. Next slide, please. All right, so the leading challenges. You can probably click through to the next little updates there, please, Nicholas. Wrong mate. The cyber maturity challenge is that there really is a lack of expertise and a lack of resources. I would expect that in most organizations, they're being asked to do more with existing resources or more with less. And so how do we use our existing skills to get a better visibility of our environment? How do we do that without engaging subject matter experts like GRC consultants? To that end, there's a lack of comprehensive visibility. So the spreadsheets are great, I guess, if you pick up, download a NIST framework or an ISO 27001 framework standard, put into a spreadsheet, and then assess yourself. Doesn't really scale. And so then if you've got to assess multiple sub-organizations, or you need to change between frameworks, somebody might say, well, okay, you're resilient against Essential Act, but what does that look like against NIST? And so it becomes a real challenge to get that visibility. There's a lack of standardized assessments. If you go out, if you don't want to pay for one of those very expensive GRC tools, then standardized assessments are really hard. You could go to CIS 8 or the CIS 18 and again, get a spreadsheet, but to use the tool sets is difficult, and they don't switch between frameworks. And so then if you're looking at our third party, our supplier risk, we're very dependent on their assessment for their assurance to you that they're doing okay. And so we need a means to measure them against the same yardstick, against the same standard that we expect ourselves. Next slide, please.
Before we go to that, Daniel, how would you say that those expensive consultants that don't agree with each other, what do they agree with from the MyCISO platform? Do they agree that actually it's an agreeable position for everybody? Have you overcome that in this platform?
Yeah, so there's two camps, I believe, in GRC people. So number one is that reports become data-driven rather than back of the brain kind of decisions. So when we go to GRC consultants, we say, assess this environment, what will you do first? And they say, I would do A, B, and C. How did you come up with that? And the response typically is, well, in my experience, I believe that these things should go here or these things go there. What we're actually proposing here is that we have a data-driven discussion about it. And so assessing the security, the maturity of the security controls, looking at the deficiency in those controls, and then weighing them up against the risk assessments and the scenarios gives us a position to say, well, if your biggest risk is, for example, ransomware, then the controls which are most important to address are A, B, and C. And so you can address those first. There's always going to be a need for GRC consultants, right? We're not looking to replace them. What we are intending to do is to make this a lot more accessible to a larger group of people, so that you can align yourself. And if you're going to, say, an ISO certification, there's a lot of work and a lot of expense to get to that alignment phase before you get certified. And so this is a means for you to align before you start engaging the consultants to get certified.
Thanks, Daniel.
Fair? All right, and so to that end, the MyCISO journey looks like this. We will start by gaining some context. Just hit the next button, please, Nick. So we'll gain context. We fill in a company profile. The company profile lists who you are as an organization, the size, the industry, what your security drivers are, and what your crown jewels are. What are the sensitive things that you're trying to protect? The second phase is the dual maturity assessment. So we choose our framework. We choose a framework. We assess the controls within the framework, produces a gap assessment. Next one is we do a risk assessment. So we have 15 risk scenarios. In every risk scenario, the controls have a relevancy. And so based on the relevancy of the controls to the scenario, it will then map out onto a heat map where your greatest risks are. Once you've done that, and that's really the hard work, is that the system will produce a cyber improvement strategy. And the cyber improvement strategy, as I say, is a data-driven strategy for you to look at everything that you've assessed based on the framework you've done and said, where are you going to get the greatest impact for your investment? And then the last step, step number 5, is continuous improvement. So this shouldn't be a once a year engagement for you. This should be a once a quarter or once a month. So as you're improving your environment, you want to go back into the system, uplift the maturity of the control within the system, and rerun the reports and produce them to your boss, to the board, and say, here's where we were in January, here's where we are today. Okay, next slide, please.
Just before we move on to the next slide, might be interested from a poll side of things. We asked the questions, do you currently measure your cyber maturity? And 38% yes, they say they have a tool set against a framework. 13% said yes on a spreadsheet against the framework, and half of the audience said that they loosely, very loosely, have a way of measuring their cyber maturity.
Yep. Great.
Okay. So supplier assessment, would you like me to launch the poll now for this one?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Here we go. So on the screen, everybody, you should now have that available. Are you currently assessing your supply chain risk? Yes, with another tool set. Yes, with spreadsheets. Yes, but really informally, and not at all. And the second question on here is, who do you think is responsible within your organization for supply chain risk assessment? Is it the IT cyber team, your procurement team, finance, or no one's currently being assigned that role? Just let those polls come in as they're being updated. Just 10 more seconds. And we'll close that poll now. So the answer to that, Daniel, was yes. 20% of the audience are using another tool set to measure their supply chain. Yes, they're doing it with spreadsheets. Is 20%. 40% of the audience, yes, you're doing it, but quite informally. Yeah. And 20% said, we're not doing this at all. Interesting.
Well, I guess that's why you're here, right? Nick, I'll get you to just check the settings to allow me to share for the demo setting, mate. Once we get through this, there's obviously a allow sharing. But let's talk to this supplier assessment. So the way that traditionally we've been doing supplier assessments is, as you see, create an Excel spreadsheet, list all the questions that you want to ask, and then email it out to everybody. And so you're reliant on somebody then manning a mailbox to retrieve those assessments. You send the reminders, you send the reminders again. and you eventually get some results. So review your results. You get questions about, I don't quite have enough information here, send us some more emails back and forth. You clarify and clarify, update your spreadsheets. Oh, too far. Follow up, lose your information, emails go missing, people leave the organization. And so there's a whole lot of brokenness in there. They're just unable to maintain a single pane of glass. And so in order to fix that, and we guess that if you're going to assess yourself against a specified framework, why not assess the people who supply your products that are critical to your business in the same manner? So let's go to the next slide. The working model is this. We have, sorry, Nick, too far. Yep, we identify and classify your suppliers. You probably already know who your suppliers are. If not, I'm sure you can get a list from procurement. We want to determine what their criticality is. And by criticality, I mean how impactful would it be if they were to disappear off the planet, if they were to be shut down or hit by ransomware. So the kind of questions you want to ask them are, do you have system access? Do you have physical access to our systems? Do you hold any of our personal identifiable information? What's the contract value? Yeah. And so breaking them up into low, mediums, and high criticality. It could be somebody from anywhere from the cleaners to a logistics company to a managed services provider. All right, flick forward just a little bit, please. Then define the assessment. What you'll see in the demo, hopefully I can share at that point, is to define what frameworks you're allowed to, what framework you want to assign to the criticality. Could be a very small framework, medium framework, large framework. Along with those individual frameworks, it could be individual questions you want to ask them. And it could be something like, do you have a security and privacy policy? Do you train your staff in cyber awareness? Are you already aligned to a leading cyber framework? If so, give us the certification. You don't have to answer anything else. You also want to decide what your pass rate is. So are there certain questions in that framework that are non-negotiable, that unless they have that maturity in place, you don't want them as a supplier? Next step is to do the assessment. So we can send them individually, if you like. So as one or two suppliers come on board with you, or you want to assess them before you allow them to be a supplier, you can send an individual framework, or you can do it in bulk. So if you have, as one of our customers has, 650 suppliers, we run those in batches with them. So we send a couple of dozen out first, make sure they all land okay, set some communication up with those suppliers so that they understand that they're going to be receiving this, and then over a period of weeks, address the rest of them. Next step is to engage with them. So once they've received the assessment and they get into the portal, and they'll inevitably have questions about what it is they're responding to, they can communicate with you via the platform. You can also communicate with them via the platform. So if they respond to a particular question that you have or control, and you're not quite sure you're happy with the result, you can send them a note against that specific control, against that specific question, to request more information, define, get more definition about how they're responding, etc. The next step is to report. And so once they've completed their assessment, they can, once they complete the assessment, you can run a report against them, exactly the same as you would run a report against yourself. And as an added bonus, they get a copy of the report as well. So if you close them off as a supplier, as in you complete the assessment, the supplier gets the ability to see their own score, their own report, and the report provides recommendations on how they can improve on any controls that they're deficient on. So it actually is a benefit to them, ultimately, that they'll get some insight as to how they can improve. Next stage, last stage, is to manage. And so go into a cycle where you can assess them or update their assessment every 12 months, 24 months, whatever you decide is the working model, setting reminders for expired certificates, etc. and just go through that continuous improvement. Okay, next step. Off like a rocket ship. Okay, now this is where I need to do a demo, and I've got a message only meeting organizers and presenters can share. So just give me a second.
Should be
I'm just
there.
going to request. Let's see if that allows me to do it. Request control.
You have control.
Ooh, okay, this is interesting. It's allowing me to control your screen.
Can you present your screen, Daniel?
Nope. Grayed out. Do you want to open up a browser window for me, please, Nick?
Sure, of course I can.
We can do this. We can do it.
When I find out what 5 screens I'm on. Bear with the audience. There we go, Sam.
Perfect.
Can you access that?
Yeah. All right. Talk amongst yourselves.
Time to guess Daniel's password. Is it what password 123?
Exactly.
Any other guesses?
You got it. Won't let me paste. Okay, I will do this. At all right, multi-factored. Here we go. So this is the platform. We are built as a multi-tenanted environment. And so you can have a provider account. And the provider account allows you to multi-tenant organizations. The reason that's important is that if you are an organization that has subsidiary organizations, has child companies, might have different geographic locations, you can set them up as child tenancies if there's different infrastructure to be assessed. All right, so here we see assess suppliers and culture. In the assess platform, we have a dashboard, and the dashboard is available once you have completed a framework. And so you can see here, we have the 5 pillars of NIST showing maturity. We've got a risk heat map over here. And what you see at the bottom are all of the controls within the framework that you're currently assessing yourself against, the maturity of them, the deployment effort, etc. So let's say in order to get here, we need to choose a framework. Today, we've got 11 frameworks in the platform, and we're continuing to add frameworks as demand requires. We've got NIST, which is 119 controls. We have subsets of NIST. So getting started framework has 20 controls, and intermediate framework has 50 of the controls of NIST. Then we have ISO 27001/2, the 2013 version, and the 2022 version. We also have the elusive Essential 8. And APRA CPS 234. So if there's any, presumably there's APRA regulated organizations on the call, this is the APRA framework, and we'll be bringing out a specific APRA report for reporting on that as well. Now, in order to assess yourself against any of the frameworks, they all work in the same way. We have domains on the left, controls on the right. Those controls look like this. We have maturity level 0, there is no control in place whatsoever. We have maturity level 1, meaning that it's informal or ad hoc. We have maturity level 2, that you have a formalized control in place, but doesn't really get reviewed that often, if at all. Maturity level 3 is that you've got a control in place. It's part of your ICMS, it gets reviewed regularly. It's part of somebody's everyday job. Maturity level 4 is that you have reporting metrics to measure the efficacy of the control. And maturity level 5 is that you continually strengthen the control. Use the reporting to strengthen. The best example I can give of this is something like endpoint protection or vulnerability management. Maturity level 0 is you've got no antivirus whatsoever, right? None. Maturity level 1 is that you have a hodgepodge group of different products. So you might have Trend here and Sophos over there and whatever. Maturity level 2 is that you have an enterprise product. It's deployed everywhere. You've got a central pane of glass that you can monitor it. But it's not really part of anybody's job. Maturity level 3 is that that pane of glass, there's somebody is responsible for managing that pane of glass, making sure that everything is deployed. Maturity level 4 is that person who does that job provides reports to his or her boss to say, here's what the delta is, here's where our gap is. And maturity level 5 is that you use the reporting metrics to close the gap, to improve on it. There is additional information about the control here if you've got any sort of thoughts, lingering thoughts, but worries about what it is. And there is an opportunity to add in context. And so I typically, when I run facilitation sessions to do assessments, we put in observations, controls. It might be, speak to Bob about this. It's his area of expertise. And we can put in links to your file store of files, policies, artifacts, whatever you like. Now, important to note, we do not ingest any of that information. That information is a live document within your platform. This is simply a link to that location. So you can put the link in, put a name for the document, wherever it is. There is also a last option here that we could mark it as not applicable. And this might be relevant if, for example, the question is around software development and you don't do any software development. We encourage caution in using this because it obviously then starts skewing results. Having said that, all of these controls operate in the same way. We have the same 6 levels of control. Now, for the Getting Started framework, there's only 15 domains, 20 controls. As we move up, there is more and more controls. So once we go through, we address all of these controls, we hit export assessments. We have an opportunity here to choose a target maturity level. As I say, maturity level 3 is the controls is part of your ISMS, it's formalized, reviewed regularly, away we go. So let's just generate that report. That's going to take us into the file store, and you can see away it goes. The next step is to assess risks. So we have 15 risk scenarios here. In these risk scenarios, let's choose one that's really easy to explain here, ransomware attack. Every one of these risk scenarios has in the background all of the controls within the framework that you've chosen. And so the platform says, how relevant are these controls to the scenario? In this case for ransomware, data backups, business continuity, malicious code protection, incident handling, these controls have a high relevancy. At the end of the day, it adds a weighting to each one of these controls and the maturity that you have on the control and gives you a scoring. In this case, we have a 38% scenario control effectiveness. In other words, there's a 62% likelihood that this scenario will impact you should it occur. And so it predicts it's likely that this is going to impact you. What you need to do with your consultant then is to determine what the impact is. And so we have here very low, no major consequences, potentially harmful, disruptive, potentially damaging, or potentially devastating. So a little bit of navel gazing required here, a little bit of thought about how that all operates. And go through each one of those scenarios in turn. And away we go. So we can generate ourselves a risk report, and then we'll generate a strategy report. There is one more report to create, and that is a executive summary report, because clearly the boss doesn't want to read all of that information. Okay, so your gap report is interesting. If there's any questions on these, please put them in the chat. Your gap report is going to give you a view of this. So we have here a maturity and said, okay, well, our goal was to hit maturity level 3. We've actually achieved 1.9, 38% maturity. Across the 5 pillars of NIST, this is where we've got some maturity and some immaturity. If we look at the individual controls, so individual domains within that particular framework, again, where we've got some maturity and deficiencies. And then lastly, across those pillars, how, what it looks like. Lastly, because it's important to do something about this, for every single control, we have an opportunity here to look at that control and say, well, for this one, asset inventories, do you have asset tracking and reporting? This is the recommendation in order to address it. And so it's very succinct. It's sort of been distilled down to the Twitterverse, where we have a 130 character limit to make sure that there is not pages of text in there. The next phase here is to look at our risk assessment, and the risk assessment, as you would guess, allows us to view those scenarios on a heat map and say, okay, well, what were the scenarios that are most likely to impact us and how impactful are they? I have these numbers sort of spread across the page for the purpose of demonstration, but what I typically find is that the likelihood of these scenarios occurring typically is in a line. Maturity would be fairly distributed across the environment, and so you would find a lot of these in a line. But for the purpose of demonstration here, we see number one, loss of sensitive data due to human error being the most impactful scenario. You'll get to see those scenarios from most to least risky. And then every scenario listed in there. Lastly, you'll get maybe not lastly, but thirdly, next, you'll get a cyber strategy report. So it's all well and good to understand what your maturity is. You want to know what to do about it. Thank you for the time reminder, Nicholas. We'll jump onto this. All right, so here is the important part. We have a strategy on a page, nice clear idea of where you are and what you're going to do to get where you need to go. And then we have this thing called CTUI, and CTUI is proprietary to us. It's an algorithm which effectively shows you your return on investment. And what I mean by that is, if we were to look at each of the domains within the framework, the higher the number, the greater the impact will be should you invest in it. And so in this particular demo environment, it looks like incident response, and then risk management, and then business continuity. Those are the top 3 areas that are going to move the needle for you. And your environment will be different from this, but it gives you a clear idea of where to invest your time and money. Alternatively, if you're looking for some quick wins, you go to the roadmap on a page, and the roadmap on a page lists the controls within the framework and says what controls have the lowest effort and the highest impact. Let's do those first. And you'll notice those are actually mostly, or 3 of them are a policy. One of them is a technology. And the next one's a slightly more effort, slightly less impact, and the next one's slightly more effort, slightly less impact. So if you want to do, knock off a couple of individual controls, this is the report you would go to. All right, so that's assess. That's assess in a nutshell. What we do then is we move on to suppliers. Now, the supplier environment, once you've sent out your assessments, you get a response dashboard, and you can see I've got here Joe's Office Cleaners, Bob's Transport and Logistics, and Mary's MSP. And they are listed as low, medium, and high criticality suppliers, and they're at various levels, various steps in their process. They've got the maturity levels here. We can see we've got critical, stable, or benchmark RAG statuses here. To get to this point, very straightforward. We set up our questionnaires. So we have an opportunity to break our suppliers up into low, medium, and high criticality, as I explained earlier. We would assign a particular framework to them. And then we would add any additional questions we might want to ask them. So here we go. Do you have a disaster recovery in place that has been tested in the last 12 months? Please provide a link to your public information security and privacy policy. How often do you conduct background checks or police checks of your staff? This could be anything, any type of question you like, and you can present them in multiple different ways. You would simply close that. You would simply to send out one questionnaire, fill in company name, email address, criticality, select your framework, and send out that one assessment. Or you can download the template. So download current suppliers. We'll pull down anybody you've previously got in the system. 5 columns, company name, first name, last name, email address, criticality. Upload it, and it will send out assessments to everybody in that list. They then go through 3 steps. First step is to create a company profile, and this is what the company profile looks like. The geographic location, the security roles that they have, the size of the organization, their turnover, their risk impact level, the industry, what sensitive information they hold. The second step is to do the supplier questions. So those are those additional questions we put in there. And what you can do at this point is, if in the old way, in the traditional way, you would send them an email and say, hey, I need a bit more information on that. In this new fandangled world, we can go into comments and notifications, and we can put in here anything you like. Yeah. Save a comment, and you'll see it opens up that question again and marks it to supplier. Now the supplier will get a notification at the end of the week of all questions that have come through, all additional notifications come through, and so they can come back into the system and address each one of them in turn. Once Daniel, they have,
just to ask, if
yes.
somebody's going through this asking, we need to update 3 or 4 things, I think you just mentioned it, do they get sent the bulk of questions as 1, please update these next 4, or do they get lots of emails that appear as spam for them?
Yes,
how does that work?
Right. And that was exactly what we're trying not to do. They get 1 email at the end of the week. So once a week, an email is generated that will update the supplier and say, hey, here are all the notifications for the platform for the week.
So somebody has some fun on a Friday night with, oh, I've got to do all this from Monday. That's great.
I need to get all this done for Monday. That's exactly
okay.
Right.
Thank you.
And then the third step in the process is for them to complete the assessment. And so in this case, for the low criticality supplier, we gave them a getting started framework, and they would go through exactly the same process that you would typically go through. There's an option here to choose notifications. So if any of those controls have got notifications on them, they can single them out. They can look for any unanswered questions. And they get the same access. So similarly, you could again put in here save that control, and that gets sent off as a notification to the supplier. Once they've completed the process, let's go back up here. Click, click, click. I've lost control for some reason. All right. Okay, sorry, my bad. Once we get to the end there, you can go ahead and generate a report, and the report is similar to the one you saw earlier for the gap assessment. Save supplier report, go to the file store, bingo bango, off it goes. And so then you've got a report on Joe's office cleaners. Ultimately, though, for all of your suppliers, you will kind of operate out of this page here, this response dashboard. You could also set yourself up with some reminders. And so it could be, let's set Mary's MSP, let's make that one active, come down here and say, I want to create a new calendar reminder, and I want to say in August of 2024, renew supplier, assessment. Yep. Save that reminder in there, and that goes into your system. Ooh,
You just select a date, Daniel.
Sorry. Oh, choose a date. My bad. I should know how to use my own system. Produces a notification for you for that date to go and update them. And then once they've completed their process, so we'll go down here. So this shows obviously it's done 3 of 3 steps. We can mark them as complete, and that will allow you to generate the report and allow them to generate their gap assessment report as well. You can also assign the supplier to an individual. So if there's somebody that is responsible for that contract within your organization, you can assign that supplier to that individual. So that's suppliers. Conscious of time, let's get through culture.
We do have a quick poll for culture. For a
quick poll, let's do it.
Let's do that. Here we go. Okay, that should be visible for you. So do you provide cyber awareness training to your staff? Yes, regularly, once a month or once a quarter. Yes, once or twice a year. No, but I know I need to do something. No, and it's not something I think that's important. Second question, what kind of training do you find resonates with your staff? Is it videos and animation, gamification, newsletters, webinars, or seminars? And final question is, if you're providing cyber awareness training, do you think it's helping? Yes, we've seen an uplift in maturity and resilience. No, despite our best efforts, people keep clicking on those damn phishing emails. And no idea, we don't really have any way of measuring maturity.
On the second one, I think I should have put all of the above in there as well, but choose the one that's that resonates with you the most.
Yeah.
All right, well, while you're doing that, let me start getting to this. So the culture platform, and there's not a lot of data on this one, I'm afraid, because I accidentally wiped it out recently, but these dashboards will give you your company's maturity rating over time. And it's just basically widgets cutting the data. So based on the individuals that you have enrolled, you'll see here there's group sales, technical, people and culture, I think that is, operations, compliance. And so you can slice and dice users as you like. The way to do that is first to get them in the system. You can either do a bulk user upload or you can connect to Azure AD. Now, if you connect to Azure AD, it will import all of the organizational units as well. And so we go into manage user tags, you would come down to the bottom here, and under Azure Directory Sync, it will give you the opportunity to add tags to those groups. So you might divide up your users into AUs that are departmental or geographic. 2 reasons for doing this. Creating these tags allows you to train them separately, differently. You could assign specific training to a tag or more frequent, and then you can also report on them separately. The training itself comes in a few flavors. We have our detective series. Now, the detective series is live action. There is either a 15-minute long choose your own adventure version. Choose your own adventure version, or it breaks it up into these individual 3-minute long videos. And they essentially, ask you as they say, it's your first day of the job as a new CISO, $250,000 has gone missing. What do you do? And ask you a series of questions. The second set of training is the animated series, and the animated series is what you would expect. 3 4-minute long videos with quizzes at the end of each one to get your users to learn in a different way. We are developing a role-specific series at the moment as well. The first one is privileged user security. We're going to go into building ones for boards and for some other specific user groups. And then recently added to the platform, we have a Spot the Difference game. So the Spot the Difference game gives you a couple of different phishing emails. One is legitimate, one is a phishing message, and you are required to click on the areas that look dodgy to train people to look for the incorrect stuff. The second game is two truths and a lie. Two truths and a lie, just like the pub, will give you two cybersecurity truths and one incorrect truth. Now, these are actually pretty tricky, and so they're aimed to trip people up, to make sure that people are paying attention, and we've had some really great response on that. In order to test maturity, we want to do attack simulation. So phishing tests, we would go ahead, set up a domain whitelist, whitelist the domains from which we're sending the phishing emails, configure a spam report button, test that you can receive the messages, and then go and have a look at the potential messages being sent through. And so we've got a nice a range of both local, as an Australian, emails and international. So there's one, I think, from the ATO somewhere around August. We've got Australia Post, we can see Netflix, etc., Amazon. So lots during the course of the campaign, everybody that subscribed to it would get one of these 4 emails, and it would be spread out over a period of days. So if you've got 100 people in the organization, it might spread that out over a whole week. Not everybody's going to get the same email. You can then run reports on the team, company. You can sort of see from an attack simulation point of view, how many people received the email, how many people have opened it, clicked, etc. In order to get this all set up, which is the challenge, is we have a strategy builder, and the strategy builder allows us to come in here, choose a time period over which you want the strategy to run, choose a start date, choose the collateral that you want to send out, choose the topics, and then generate the strategy. And that will then build this beautiful view that runs over that period. So within a very short period of time, you can have this lovely strategy. And then you can generate yourself a timeline view. And so you can generate this, get it printed out, and you have this lovely poster to stick up on your wall so that you can see over the next 12, 18, or 24 months exactly what cyber awareness training is being put out to your organization. That's the culture. Oh, sorry, the last one would be the dashboard, coming back to the dashboard. So now you'll see over time exactly how everybody is progressing. Probably time for the last poll, Mr. Nick.
Wonderful, thank you, Dan. I think that's really great, but you wouldn't necessarily always put it on a wall where users can walk into your support desk.
True.
I will tell a story. I was at the MCG a couple of weeks ago, and I was in the media section there, and they had media access point name and the password. I think all the IT people with me were all taking photos. So, all right, the next poll is really limited. What is more appealing to you as an offering? So if you were looking at a tool like this, would licensing for a tool set that your team can manage on their own be the direction you take? Licensing for a tool set along with a customer success program from a partner, Comics, to assist your team in the process, or a fully outsourced model to manage the process and provide regular reporting for your business? What would be your preference? So only one question. 50% of the people came back saying licensing for a tool set along with a customer success program from a partner who knows what they're doing, can identify and decipher the jargon will be really useful.
Fantastic. I didn't really see any questions come through from the group, and we've got just a couple of minutes left. Is there anything that I haven't covered that sparks some thoughts from the people on the call? You need additional information. If you're too shy, you can reach out to Nick or myself after this and ask us. But I hope that was useful for everybody and everybody got something to take away.
Just going to go into some customer success stories around Pepper Money, you at
Absolutely.
SW College, and cover
Let's
more
do that.
insurance. But I've been checking the raise your hand and the chat window. Only the updates from the polls have appeared in the chat window. So please don't be shy, or please feel free to come off your microphone at any time. We're happy. We don't bite. Happy to assist.
All right. Do you want to flip to the back
Sure.
to the thing? I will stop controlling. Yeah, so don't take our word for it. We've got plenty of organizations that are using our platform already. And these are some of the logos. There's a couple of new logos that haven't reached this page yet. One of them is Auto Sports Group. So fine, was it luxury vehicle organization, pretty large one at that. Pepper Money is using our platform for supplier assessments. They've got 600 suppliers that they're assessing, and so there's a very wide range of both commercial organizations, there's finance, hospitality, healthcare, you name it. One to call out is Domino's. Now, the problem that Domino's had was geographic location, and so they had no way of assessing their organizations across a large geographic area, and so they've taken our product along with what we call our customer success program, so that we can facilitate the assessment across those other geographic locations to get them all assessed. So they've all got the same outcome, the same reporting, and they can see where their areas are. University of New South Wales College, they've taken the whole suite. So they took all assess, culture and suppliers, and we displaced one of the leading culture awareness, cyber awareness platforms from New South Wales College that they've been using for a few years. They found our platform to be far more usable, the content far more relevant, and the reporting to be significantly improved. Oh, and the last one is really interesting. Covermore. Covermore is, as you can see, a part of Zurich Company. They are insurance underwriters and brokers. They needed a very specific framework, and so they had built a framework based on a sort of Frankenstein of a couple of other frameworks, and we built that in the system specifically for them, and then they were able to assess their dozen or so partners or subsidiary companies against that specific framework. So we were very happy to do that. As a startup, we're quite flexible and able to be agile in this space. So yeah, we can send this slide deck through to you as well, I'm sure, Nick, if anybody wants to read some more details. And with 2 minutes to go, I think if there's no Q&A, please reach out to us afterwards. If not, I'm sure Nick will reach out to you.
Yep. Please feel free to come off mute if you wish. We still have a number of people on the webinar. Thank you for staying. We do hope it was useful. Are there any questions at all?
Daniel, just wondering what the roadmap is for your product. Where are you hoping to take it?
Oh, great question. All right, so what's coming out in the coming weeks is we've got a couple of new frameworks being ingested. PCI DSS, the Victorian Protective Data Standards, is also CIS 18, so it's from framework's position. We've got a reporting module that's coming out that modularizes every single part of our reports, which will allow you to create custom reports. Just choose bits and pieces of the various reports. It also will allow us to create specific tables for each of the frameworks. So if there's a particular way that framework is reporting, we can create a module which has a table for that. There is also an improve and manage module which is coming out towards the end of the year. So the assess module is the what, what's wrong, how we measured. The next module will be coming out will be called improve, and the improve module is the how. How do we uplift? How do we write an incident response plan? How do we create a business impact assessment strategy? How do we create privacy policies? All of the stuff will be embedded within the platform, so you can answer a series of questions and it will produce the collateral for you. And then there'll be a manage module as well. And so the manage module will allow you to project manage all of these improvements over a period of time. You obviously can't do everything at once. So what's important? Over what period are we going to run it? What are the steps involved in doing it? Costings, etc. And so those are some of the things we'll be bringing up.
Great question, Tim. Thank you.
Excellent.
Any further questions? Okay.
That's good.
I will be, thank you very much, Daniel. I think hopefully everyone found it informative. Thank you everyone for providing your own answers to the polls and how it relates to yourself. That's super important, so we can try and obviously present as to what's relevant for you. Next day or next business day or so, I'll be looking to reach out to each of you just to understand what your thoughts are, let you have a little bit of time for digesting. I did mention at the beginning, we do have our own information and security governance expert as part of COMEX. I'm very happy to make sure that rather than me as the sales guy talking, you can actually speak cyber and information governance directly with an expert and understand how the MyCISO platform and how COMEX together may be able to assist your organization now or moving forward. But if you've got any questions, feel free to come back to Daniel or myself via email, or if not, I look forward to speaking to you in the next couple of days. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.